What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So, GDC. Big things happening here where GDC's actually been canceled or postponed, and now people are starting to look towards E3 as that's like the next big event, and will it happen? That is a big question. We're going to go over all of that and why this is happening right now, and we're also going to talk a bit about Kojima because there is some strange teasing going on right now on Twitter, and it looks like whatever is happening could be happening this week based on some very cleverly placed cues in an image that was tweeted out. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below as we push towards 400,000 subscribers. And we're actually going to start today with Platinum Games and Hideki Kamiya. Now, at PAX East, they talked quite a bit about, of course, their new game coming out, Project GG, as well as the Wonderful 101 remaster, but during a panel, they're also asked about basically every other sequel everyone wants right now from Platinum Games, and this was his response. Okami 2, Scalebound, Beautiful Joe 3, Dante vs. Bayonetta, Devil May Cry 0, I want to make everything, please email Capcom. Well, I mean, sure, he wants to make a ton of stuff. I do also wonder about the amount of time that he has to make all of those games, but some of those, yeah, we want to see a lot. Like Okami, yeah, a lot of us would like to see the next true sequel, I was like, to Okami, because of course we had Okami Den on the DS and everything, but still, could Hideki Kamiya actually do another Beautiful Joe nowadays? I'd like to think that Capcom has considered the idea, but who knows? We also saw like a Xenosaga HD collection get cut down during the marketing phase because the Bandai didn't think it would even sell. So it does concern me at times that some of these bigwigs don't really know if something would sell, even though most of us want it. But I at least like to see that Kamiya is interested in doing a lot of different things. And right now we have Wonderful 101 coming up. Bayonetta 3, of course, is still coming from them. And Babylon's Fall, which kind of disappeared a bit, and then it came back. And then, of course, Project GG. Platinum Games is doing quite a bit of stuff, and it's good to see. Also in Japan, we had a poll for the most wanted or most requested Smash characters going forward, because of course we have a whole new Fighters Pass to look forward to, I believe 6 new characters, and this is pretty much going to be it. And based on what Sakurai has been kind of saying about Smash, and considering this is called Smash Ultimate, like straight up, it could be one of the last made Smash games from the ground up, and they just kind of continue it on, porting it going forward. Well, because of that, I guess we have a poll here that shows what some of the fans want from the last Fighters Pass. Take a look at this list, and I mean, it shouldn't surprise you who's at the top. It's Sora, of course, from the Kingdom Hearts series. I'm still curious about that one, as I remember there was a rumor going around, turned out it was speculation about if Disney would allow that in Nintendo's game, but like I said, turned out to be speculation. Also, Dante from Devil May Cry, I think that'd be great, even though people are kind of getting annoyed of sword users. I think there's a lot of creativity that could go into Dante's character in the game. Hunter from Monster Hunter, which would, I think, be very popular, definitely in Japan. Rex from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, 2B, and Crash Bandicoot, and then it goes down from there, which also includes things like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. I do like the idea of Crash and 2B. I think 2B would be really, really cool, although they did leave out Mai, and 2B would be interesting to kind of skate that line as well. But Sora is the obvious one that everyone points out. Once we all realized Goku's not getting in, okay, well, what about Sora? Oh, and one thing we're going to want to pay attention to this week is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Keep in mind, the 3rd is when the game was supposed to be coming out tomorrow. So we were supposed to be playing Final Fantasy VII Remake tomorrow, or maybe even picking it up at a midnight release, or waiting down for a countdown timer tonight. But they delayed it, of course, a month essentially into April. But still, the old release date is tomorrow, and it looks like we're going to be seeing some kind of Final Fantasy VII news, whether it's previews that go up for embargo, or maybe that demo. Daniel Ahmed actually tweeted out that a big week for Final Fantasy VII Remake coming up, and I do believe him on that one. I think there's going to be something Final Fantasy VII Remake related around its original release date even that may have been planned kind of on the fly when they decided to delay it. I think a demo would be great tomorrow, okay, Square? So help me out here. I'd like to play Final Fantasy VII at least in some capacity on the 3rd of March. So help us out, drop that demo. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with GDC and the potential for E3 running into some issues this year as well. GDC has officially been postponed / canceled. People are getting refunds and all of that now because we're not 100% sure if they're going to even be able to move it into what they are saying late summer. They posted this full statement up here saying, after close consultation with our partners in the game development industry and community around the world, we've made the difficult decision to postpone the Game Developers Conference this March. They go on to say that they're going to push for like a late summer, that they can try to have the conference still this year. And I do think that conference would help a lot for the different companies, like especially Microsoft and Sony, who are launching their systems this year. Having game developers get together and be able to see these things behind closed doors where they can control things through NDAs rather than, like I said, an email chain is pretty important. But what happened, that I could tell anyway, the last few companies that really dropped out was Amazon and Blizzard, and then this statement comes out because pretty much only Nintendo was still going. It was odd. Nintendo was the only company that I saw that really didn't, big company I should say, that really didn't drop out. Everyone was waiting for Nintendo to drop as well, and I never saw it happen. They were still, I guess, going to go there and show their Animal Crossing development plan that they had put in place to show people how it all came together. Could have been an interesting panel. Maybe they'll still do it, like I said, at the end of summer. But we will have some companies still do live streams. So Microsoft, I believe, will still do a live stream around that event. And I believe that we'll still see something from Facebook and Oculus. They didn't mention if they were going to hold it off until the postponement date. My guess is that this stuff is probably in line with marketing and other things they're doing in their company. So they'll still want to hold their live streams themselves. And I don't know if they'll just take GDC out of it or the title or any of that. But I think you still look forward to any streaming events still taking place from separate companies. And then we look towards late summer. Now, the reason for this, of course, is because of CV, the virus going around currently that is causing issues specifically with travel. Japan is doing a lot right now to kind of contain and make sure everything's okay to the best of their ability with this. And a lot of developers would have flown out of Japan. And of course, everyone would have kind of come together at GDC. But another event where a lot of people around the world come together is in pretty much 3 months, and that is E3. And one of the big concerns now is, what's going to happen to E3? Because GDC was effectively canceled or postponed for now, I guess, but pretty much canceled. That date is cut out at this point because of CV. So are we close now to E3 to where it would be a concern? Seems like everyone's really worried about it because people are even asking right now, the ESA, about E3. So here's Patrick, actually over at Waypoint, who did manage to get a hold of the organizers of E3, and this is what they responded, saying, "Everyone is watching the situation very closely. We will continue to be vigilant as our first priority is the health, wellness, and safety of all of our exhibitors and attendees. Given what we know at this time, we are moving ahead full speed with E3 2020 planning, shooting for, of course, mid-March." And we've already seen some companies like Sony pull out from E3, well, mostly Sony, and of course Jeff Keighley said he's just not going to go. But I feel like ESA still just wants this event to happen completely. It's one of their biggest moneymakers. They do mention health and wellness, but I have to feel like right now they are really concerned, because if CV, the whole situation isn't contained within, I would say, mid-May, they probably will have to have a serious look at E3 and if it is still viable with the current conditions going on in the world. That is going to be something if E3 has to be canceled or postponed. I feel like right now they're still going to work in some way to push forward, whether that end up being a digital-only event for most of us. And keep in mind, some of the companies like Microsoft, they don't even hold their event at E3 itself. They could still do it with just their company going and not having it open to fans and have just a stage presence that they record and put out online through streaming, like, I guess, like an Inside Xbox. They could still do it. EA has, I believe, EA Play. They're also off-site. They could do it if they want. It could end up being a big streaming event. Nintendo Direct would drop either way, so there's that. But most likely, worst case scenario, we would just have a bunch of streams to tune into like usual, and then it would probably be a lot of interviews and stuff over the phone for any publications that want to get a hold of a specific developer. But we'll keep an eye on E3 because I right now, there is some doubt around this, and it's going to be worth following. Next up, let's talk about what's one of the biggest teases online right now. This has had people talking because it's insane to think about. But what if Kojima and Konami got back together to do something with Silent Hills? Yeah, would that excite you? Because it turned the internet upside down the other day when Kojima Productions tweeted this image out followed by sorry to be silent, everyone. I've been really busy lately. I think I can share more, I could say more soon about what we are going to, and then it just kind of trails off there. But there's a few interesting things in this picture that people are, of course, dissecting now, thinking that there is a tease here, and if there's not a tease here, it is an amazing coincidence overall, right? So let's start from the basics. If you zoom in on the piece of paper, on that notepad, it says next week with an exclamation point, which this was last week, so that will be this week. Something could be announced or shown. And then it gets a little crazier, kind of go down the rabbit hole here. If you zoom in on the pencil, it is a pyramid pencil. Like Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. So, of course, everyone's kind of piecing this together. Could Kojima be teasing the possibility of Silent Hill this week being announced? Maybe? I mean, okay, so the reason I have a hard time getting on board with this, the breakup between Kojima and Konami is even worse than a lot of people know. Okay, so it was, from what I've heard, it was pretty bad. And it was bad to the point where Konami wouldn't want Kojima back, and I don't think Kojima would want Konami back. Now, Konami, of course, controls Silent Hill, and, well, they like money, but I do still think they could find someone else to make a Silent Hill game, and it's not like Kojima's the only one that could make it. I understand PT, amazing, what a really cool experience. I would have loved to have seen that become a full game, but Konami, the way that they treated him, I don't know if they want him walking back through the doors, even for meetings. Of course, Kojima would probably be contracted out through his Kojima Productions company, but what I think this could be is something for Death Stranding. It could be DLC, could be the announcement of the PC release date. There's a lot of things there, and I do believe right now that's probably what it's for, something Death Stranding related, but I mean, I guess you never know. There are rumors about some Silent Hill stuff in the background, remasters, a new game being worked on by Konami. At least they were shopping it around, I think, a year or two ago. So maybe they found someone, and maybe it was Kojima. Or I don't know, maybe we get somewhere new to walk to in Death Stranding. Next up, let's talk about Google Stadia. It's still around, I promise. It's still out there, and the free option isn't around yet, and I was hoping they would have launched it by now, but it still hasn't happened. When it does launch, I do recommend people at least try it and just see what you think of it if they have like just a game they give away, like a Fortnite or something that's free anyway. But we're starting to find out more information about why there aren't many games on there, because their library is very, very limited, and it's specifically missing a lot of indie games that you thought would have flocked to that service. But there are a few issues here. Business Insider actually did a very, very good article, and they managed to get several interviews that were anonymous. The different companies, different developers, specifically indie ones, wanted to stay anonymous, of course, but they had some insight that was something to think about. Now, Google Stadia, of course, shows up with a small install base that they tried to build from the ground up by selling controllers. The free service should have been ready immediately, because then they could have fudged the numbers. Oh, look at all of these potential customers that have Google Chrome installed that have access to it, right? They could have started just feeding Google Chrome numbers. Millions and millions and millions of people out there are ready to play your game. Way better, right? But it seems that the indie developers have two issues here. One, Google didn't really show up with money necessarily. They didn't say, hey, we'll do some kind of funding here to help your game. We'll do this, but you had to put it on Stadia, right? Sure, we have 10,000 people on it right now, but you gotta still put it there. That was one issue, is that money never came up to essentially help get their indie game to the finish line, and then by that turn, actually buy either a exclusivity deal for a few months, for example, timed exclusives. That's something we talked about, and they've even said, Google Stadia has at this point, that they kind of messed up and they're going to try to work on that. The other thing is, you know how we don't believe in Google Stadia sticking around for very long because of Google's track record? Yeah, that's something that they also are looking at, the indie developers specifically. Will Stadia be around? I don't know. Google Plus got destroyed. There's a whole web page that's dedicated to all the stuff that Google has just thrown away because it didn't work immediately. So yes, even developers were skeptical about Google's ability to stick with Stadia, and the only thing that will really fix that is number one, and that's money. So you don't show up with money, you say, hey, trust us, and then they point you to the page with everything you've shut down. And our last bit of news, let's talk about some retro stuff, some retro news. Now, if you were around back in the late 80s, you of course saw the NES show up, right? The original Nintendo Entertainment System. It shows up, and it was amazing at the time. It took the world by storm with Mario, and from there it was off and running for Nintendo into the Super Nintendo and then so on. But of course, before that, we had the Famicom, and it was much different than what the Nintendo looks like. The Nintendo looked more like almost like a VCR, I guess, whereas the Famicom looked more like a toy as it was described. But the cartridge slots were in two different spots. The NES had a top-loading one, whereas the Famicom, it was just right there. You took the cartridge, you jammed it right into the motherboard, and you turned it on. Well, we have the reason why it's different. And it's an interesting reason, I guess. Now, this was during a talk at the National Video Game Museum that was in Sheffield last week. This is from Masayuki Yamura, who talked a bit about the differences of why it was changed, saying, on the Famicom, the cartridge was directly connected to the hardware side, so if you attach the video game cartridge to the actual device, they're static and charges, and this can result in a short circuit. Unlike Japan, where it's humid, Texas, for example, in North America is very dry, so it's likely that children, when they touch it, will cause a short circuit, and in the living room, there are rugs and stuff like that, so it's likely that we will have static. So front-loading prevents children from actually touching their hands to the devices. That's why we developed it as a front-loader. Strange, yes, I know. It's certainly a weird idea to say, hey, let's put a flap there, and they can't necessarily touch the motherboard, because they got away from that pretty quick. We got the top loader, right? Then we went to the Super Nintendo and the N64, although they did a pretty good job covering that up around the cartridge socket with plastic, and of course they had the door flap. But yes, that was apparently the reason they did it. They changed the design so that you couldn't touch the system completely. You had to go through basically an elbow connector around, right? A U connector. You've seen the 72-pin connector to get to the board so that we didn't discharge static into the system and destroy it. I guess they were looking at the different climates in, I guess, the U.S., and they said, okay, well, Texas, it's dry there, so there's gonna be static all over the place, and they might blow up the NES. They figured out that it wasn't that big of a deal, obviously, as we move forward, but it's something interesting that the whole design of the system changed just based on humidity. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one's from Dad Shoe, saying, I almost forgot that the Switch's 3rd anniversary is coming up. Perhaps we're getting the Direct on the 3rd in that case. That'd be tomorrow, which is probably too late. I don't think we're getting on the 3rd, but they'll probably do something fun online, right? Maybe they'll do like a little card, a birthday card for the Switch. Maybe they do have an announcement set up. That'd be kind of neat, right? Maybe they announce the Direct on the 3rd for this week or for next week or something. They'll say something on Twitter. They'll put out a press release. We've even sold this many. Who knows? There's a lot of stuff they can do, but they will recognize the 3rd birthday of the Switch, and now we're going into the 4th year when I expect quite a bit of stuff to happen. A lot of games, since we're hitting that time where development cycles have completed. And by restarted development cycles, I mean like the Zelda team who finished up Breath of the Wild. Well, now it would have been several years, and they would be ready with something like Breath of the Wild 2 or Mario Odyssey team, the developers there. That's probably restarted, and maybe we see a new 3D Mario coming up. The 4th year is going to be interesting, I think, for the Switch. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's GDC and E3. GDC's been canceled or postponed to a later date that we're not sure of right now. Do you think this is going to end up getting to E3? Do you think E3 is going to have to sit back and decide if they're going to move their date? If they're outright cancel it for this year? Some stuff to think about there with E3. Also, what do you think about Kojima and that tease on Twitter? Do you think that he's just kind of messing around, just trolling the internet? Or do you think there really is some crazy deal between him and Konami and he's about to just shake up the entire internet this week? Thanks so much, you guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.